Everybody's looking so beautiful today. I'm wishing for you all a great 2021. And at this point, I'm going to ask Miss Maxine Brown to bring her greetings. I'm not seeing her. Is Dr. Walder, are you on? All right, I'm not seeing Dr. Walder. All right, so in the meantime, while they join, we're gonna administer the quick brain teaser, as I like to call it now. So Mr. Sims, can you please go ahead and share?
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so we'll allow 5 minutes for that. So hopefully Maxine Brown will join us and we will officially begin the training session after she presents. If she doesn't present, we're gonna go right over to our presenter today. All right, over to you, Mr. Sims.
Thanks, Ms. Johnson. Morning, everyone. So I see a lot of the emails coming in, and in the chat, I have also put the link. So if you fill the test, as Ms. Johnson mentioned, then you don't need to also put your email, because a section is in the link for you to add your email, and then it would be easier for us to send over the training information. So just go to the chat, and for those who are not so familiar with Zoom, the chat is probably at the bottom of your screen, and you just open it and fill out this section. Ms. Johnson says 5 minutes. And Miss Brown is now on. We're seeing her now. Probably she was there before.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My apologies. As a matter of fact, myself and the other representative from AIC, we were actually in another Zoom chat, because apparently there was another link that was sent out that you sent in the email, Mr. Sims, and somehow we logged into that one and not the one that was sent on the flyer. So we just realized our mistake, and so she may be joining in us now, as a matter of fact. So my apologies, but we're actually in the wrong window. We only realized we were saying 10 o'clock and we were saying it was only the two of us in that session.
All right, my apologies for that.
So you were telling them about the pre-test, just to
Yes, as soon
click on the link and just to quickly do it 5 minutes.
Definitely. And then
the test is really about our evaluation as well, just to see if we were able to build the capacity, because they'll be getting the test at the end of the session again to redo it. So it's really for us to see if we were able to pass on the knowledge to you so that you can do better at the test when you get it again at the end of the 3-week session. So just quickly, just do what you can in this space of 5 minutes. And Mr. Sims, you're timing it, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So we have 3 minutes. The emails keep coming in, so I'm going to send the link for the test again. If you have any challenge clicking on it, okay, you can let us know, because we're able to see the responses as they come in terms of the persons who are filling it out. It is easier for us to send the training info via the link, and as Ms. Brown mentioned, that it will be an opportunity for us to evaluate how well we pass on the information to you based on what you know at the beginning and what you know as we go along. So I'm seeing 4 responses so far. Okay, they're coming up. I see them coming in now. So
And they're easy, just multiple choices. So
Yes,
just put your
and
answer.
this is not a measure to say how smart you are or anything like that. This is just to gauge how well we'll be able to deliver the information. In fact, when Leslie passed on these questions, trust me, I would have gotten all of them wrong because it just shows how much I need to learn about grant proposal writing and how much there is that we think that we know that we actually don't know. So in the next minute, because while the training is going on, persons will be able to go on and fill out. We have 100 persons and I think we're maxed out to capacity. So we can start going at 10:10. Miss Brown, Miss Johnson said that you could just give an intro to the series, and then that would lead over to Leslie.
Okay, no problem. So they have about 1 minute left, basically. Or no? Okay, so we're going to start because this is really an exciting course, an interactive course. And from the little bit that I've seen with Ms. Cosgrove, I mean, I think it's really going to be very interesting. It's a relaxed sort of setting. It's not for us like we're in a classroom and how we're going to be tense. No, because we want to make sure that everybody at the end of the course really understand the principles with grant proposal writing. So this collaboration really is with RADa and USAID, and it has been going on for probably over a year, where we actually had consultants who would be here. And had it not been for COVID, we would have had a different sort of setting, you know, where you could work in groups and do all of that in a face-to-face setting. But we know that information is important and we don't want anyone to lose out on it. So that is why we're making sure that even with this platform, we're using it. So we have to really thank USAID for really putting all of this together, and to thank Ms. Cosgrove for being a part of it. So USAID, I think Ms. Johnson will tell you a bit more about USAID itself, but this collaboration is really about capacity building for individuals. We have been doing it, especially for my unit, which is livestock. My name is Maxine Brown, by the way. I'm the livestock specialist in RADa, and we have been trying to build the capacity of the livestock officers, extension officers, the farmers in good production practices. So we partnered with USAID, who really came to us and let us know that they could offer, you know, technical support to us, which we were glad for. And that is how the relationship kind of started, and it has been going good so far. Ms. Johnson will introduce her team, and she has a very good team. As you can see, you would have probably met Mr. Sims already, Mr. Anil Sims, who has been working on the logistics and coordinating everything. He really has a heavy workload trying to make sure that everything is running smoothly, keeping us on track, you know, ensuring that we're meeting and discussing and getting everything done. So as I indicated, it's really a good partnership. There is more to come. So I am just excited to even get through these 3 weeks and to see what else we will be bringing. So that is why it is important, if you have a registration sheet, to really fill it out, because you'll be updated on all the different happenings that we're going to be doing with respect to capacity building. And you won't want to miss out on that. So Ms. Johnson, I'm just going to pass it over to you to really introduce your hardworking team that has been ensuring that all of this is taking place today.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. So quickly, just to introduce the team. Okay, one just came on. Garrett Lewin is our field officer with the Farmer to Farmer program. And Mr. Sims is also a field officer, and our administrative assistant, Ms. Williams, is somewhere here. So if you have questions or information that you need outside of this training about what we do, feel free to use the chat during the sessions, and we'll get back to you guys. I wanted to just have a feel of the different organizations that are here. So sometimes during the training, if you could just drop your organization name, that would really help us to see who we have on board. I don't know if Dr. Waldo has joined now. Are you here, Dr. Waldo?
Yes, I am.
All right, quickly, could you introduce yourself in your absence, in Miss Brown and yourself absence? We had already introduced Leslie, so when you're finished, you can go ahead. 10:15, all right?
Good morning, team. So my name is Lily Mae Walder, and I work at AgroInvest as Director of Project Development. We develop investment projects for private investors and for the Ministry of Agriculture. So I'm looking forward to a good training workshop for the rest of the time. Welcome, and please feel free to participate.
All right, great. Thank you, Dr. Waldo. So Dr. Waldo is our local expert who will assist Leslie as well in terms of bringing local perspective in some of the areas as we proceed for the duration of the training sessions. The link will be the same for all sessions. The topics are on the flyer. So each week you'll just log on. On Friday again, you just log on to the same Zoom link for all the sessions. And drum roll, ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to hand over to our lovely presenter today, Leslie Bago. Over to you, Leslie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You have no idea how much I wish I was there with you right now. It is 19 degrees here in the Washington, D.C. area, okay? And we lost our heat and hot water over the weekend. So it would have been so much nicer to be there in person. But I love this. I love this opportunity to do this training because this is new for me. I've done this training many, many times, but never on this format and platform. I've participated in trainings, but I've never been the person doing it. So I'm excited to be able to do this presentation with all of you. And I want you to know that because this is a new format for me and probably some of the people that are involved, would you please let us know, or if you have any questions, feel free to put something into the chat, okay? Because that's being monitored and those issues will then come up to me so that we can handle them. If we can't handle them during the training, we will handle them later. Okay, I'm on my bed. So every time I move, this thing is going up and down. So you're seeing things move. Let me see if I can make it so it doesn't quite move around like that. Okay, let's hope that works better. All right, I'm hoping that some of the things you'll learn today will be defining grants and grant makers and grant limitations. The second thing I'm hoping we cover today is identifying and defining the grant writing roadmap. All right. Now, you can see from the questions that you've answered that there's a bit of information, and a lot of that information will not necessarily be covered today in detail, but will be covered over the session, the 5 sessions. All right. A little bit more about me. I have worked in most continents. I've worked in, obviously, the United States, the Caribbean area, Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and I've done all kinds of grants for all the major donors, whether they've been governments, foundations, or countries, development banks. I think the most I ever did was 150 million. So, and that was awarded. So I've done them small ones, large ones. We just finished doing a small grant in St. Lucia through the GEF UN. It's for a 3-month project to write a proposal for spiny lobster and sea moss. So that's the thing that we've been working on. Now, why St. Lucia? I spent about 1.5 years in St. Lucia as part of the Peace Corps as a response volunteer. That means I was there doing development organization. So I was helping nonprofits make sure that the structure within their organizations were the way they were supposed to be a legitimate nonprofit, but also to be able to compete for future funding. You can't just write a grant. You have to have a lot of things in place before you can do that. All right. So, having said that, can Mr. Sims put up the first PowerPoint slide? All right. The next one. Next. There we go. That's the one we want. Okay. All right. We're going to be talking about what is a grant. All right. So we know that grant development and grant writing and grant management means the full life of a grant. So it's not okay just to know one. You need to know all 3 steps in order to understand the full life of a grant, because they all interact as you're writing that proposal. All right. So what is a grant? A grant is about writing with a precision of words. All right. That is understandable to the average person. Now, we're going to get into understanding that in a minute. I'd like to do a small interactive question with you, and I want you to put your responses in the chat. This will help you begin to understand what we talk about precision of words. All right, precision of words. First of all, let me just dissect the sentence I just said. Grant writing is about the precision of words that are understandable to the average person. So 1, I'm explaining grant writing. 2, when I say precision of words, what I am saying is that each word must explain what you are trying to say, rather than using a whole bunch of words. Number 3, understandable. No technical language. Use words that you hear all the time. 4, the average person. Ordinary people are not experts. You need to write to ordinary people. All right, so that they understand what you're trying to say. All right, so here is your first task. This is an icebreaker. So using the chat, I want you to do in 1 word or less than 10 characters, describe yourself. Think of 1 word to describe yourself if you were explaining yourself with a precision of words that is understandable to the average person.
All right, Leslie, are you seeing the responses coming up?
Yes. Now, let me tell you the story about the elephant. And in order to describe an elephant for a group of small children, a group of adults were blindfolded and taken to the elephant. And they were put on different parts of the elephant. And they were told to touch what they felt and say what they and describe what they saw or felt. So some people said, oh, an elephant is like a tree trunk because they had felt the leg. Other people were touching the trunk and they were touching that and they said, oh, an elephant is like a hose. Other people were touching the tail. And those people said, oh, an elephant is like a whip. Okay, and it went on like that. Do any of those words give you a picture of what an elephant is? Okay, so look at the words that you chose to describe yourself. Okay. Are you a rock? Are you an animal? Are you a plant? How many of you wouldn't even be able to, Garrett says a farmer. Farmer is good, okay? But a farmer is only a piece of the puzzle. Are you a male or female? Do you have a religion? Do you have a color? Do you have a race? Do you have an ethnicity? If you were to say the word human, I am a human. Human is a, and yet we're under one category, one word. So I am using the best word to give as much meaning to my say. Who am I? What am I? Does that begin to make sense? Okay. Now we're going to do the one that's about grants. Mr. Sims, could you put the one up for grants? Okay. All of you, nope, one. Okay. All of you now in chat, in one word or less than 10 characters, what a grant is. Okay. Well, we got a lot of different answers. Now, that was question number 1 on your pretest. And you saw there were a group of possible answers. Okay. And they were a promissory note, a pot of money, unrestricted money, a trust fund, a gift. And the first one was a legal contract. A grant is a contract. And a contract document. Well, you say, yeah, well, how is that possible? Well, how can a grant contract? I thought they were just giving me money to do something. Well, they're not. They're giving you money to do something that you've agreed to do in a certain timeline, in a certain budget, in a certain way, and to follow their rules and regulations and their reporting process. That is a contract. You be liable for that money. Now, in many cases, the grant is not given to you all at once. Sometimes you're given some startup money, but normally you get it through phases of your program. So you prove that you've been doing what you say and you have the receipts to show it. The money receipts to show it. And you get, basically you get reimbursed. Okay? Does that make sense to everyone? It's like, wow, now I'm writing a proposal for money or services. Because number 2 question, if you remember, on the pretest was, a grant can be an award of what? Okay, Mr. Sims, would you bring up the next slide for grant writing? Okay. So let's go over this again so you understand. A grant contract includes how you will do the work. There we go. How long it will take you to start and complete the project. Who will be responsible and who will do the work and who will benefit. A grant contract includes what activities and tasks are to be completed. Grant contract includes how you will use the money, how you will receive the money, how you will report, assess, and evaluate your work, and how you will close out the project. That's a lot. Okay, so your grant proposal, when you're grant writing, all of this is included in your grant. Okay. Grants are legally binding documents between at least 2 parties that define and govern the rights and duties of the parties to the agreement. That's legal words, and that's what a contract is. A contract is legally enforceable because it meets the requirements and approval of the law. Again, you have to take grant writing seriously. And when you submit a grant, it has to be signed by the only person in your organization who has the authority to bind you financially. Normally, that's someone on your board of directors, or if you're a government organization, it is the top person in your government agency. All right? If you do not involve those people and you happen to get awarded the grant, you now have to go to those people and tell them you've been awarded a grant that they didn't know anything about and they did not agree to. And if they didn't agree to it, that means that it's not legally binding. And they don't want any part of it. And there are times that organizations cannot legally bind themselves to a donor's contract. But you don't know that. Only the people who are in authority in your organization know that. Okay? So I hope this is helping you understand how important it is to involve all the right people, but also to appreciate the seriousness of what you're doing. Because everything you write is what you will be bound to do. All right. Let's go to the next, let's see, contracts are in writing and signed to prove all the elements are present. Okay, we all understand that. What I'd like to do now is talk about a grant award. Good, that's the slide I want. So we've already decided we know what a grant is. Now, just so everyone remembers, put in the chat, what is a grant? Good. All right. Second one. A grant can be an award of. Ooh. Remember all the choices you had? It was money, services, advice, a vehicle, a building, supplies, technology. Only money? Or all of those things? Does anyone know what a grant award is? What can it be? All of the above, exactly. It can be money, services, vehicle, building, supplies, technology, or a combination of those. So you don't always get a pot of money. All right. The next question. Now, if anyone has questions during this, please put them in the chat so we can address them. Okay. All right. The next one is a grant is awarded by a donor. Who is a donor? Okay. We had a whole bunch of choices here. We had development bank, government agency, local government, a foundation, an individual, a corporation, an international organization. A donor can be all of those or any one of those. Okay. So when you're looking for a donor, you're not always looking in the same place. The other thing that you're going to need to know as we go along is that you need to have a pot of money somewhere before you go for a big grant. And where are you going to get that money? Well, that could be an individual donor. That could be through fundraising. And we're going to talk more about that when we get into budgets and how we find the money that we need in order to get the money we need. All right. Any questions? All right.
Sure, so far.
Leslie, I'm sorry, there was one, I don't know if it's a question. The person was asking, if I have the money, why do I need a grant? Let me see where it is. It says,
okay, good question. How much money are we talking about? Are you looking at, I'm going for a grant that's $5,000 but I already have $5,000 in our account. We have 5,000. Well, one, you don't always want to use your own money. Two, that donor is willing to support the kinds of things you do. All right. So you would want that money from somewhere else. You wouldn't necessarily want to use your own. Now, if you're going for $100,000, chances are you do not have $100,000 sitting in your bank account. Okay. So you're going to need a certain amount of money in order to get that grant. You're going to have to say, I have $5,000, and we're going to use that towards this grant. So when I do the project, I'll be asking for 100,000, but I'll be showing a budget for $105,000 because I'm putting my money in that pot. All right. Someone just said personal money can be used as cash flow. You're talking about organization money, correct? Not personal money. All right, because good, thank you. Very important to know. You are organizations. You are probably all legally registered organizations. You never use your own personal money. I believe it's illegal. Okay. Good. How many donors should you apply to? Everyone. Nope. Okay. That's an interesting question, because you say, well, I'm only going to apply to one. Well, if that's all that's available, that's fine. If you say, well, I'm going to do to as many as I can, well, that's not good, because you're not matching yourself to that donor. And you're not matching your project to the donor's idea of what they want to support. All right. Only ones that have value and merit to the project. Well, that's a good answer, but you need more than that. You need to have ones that fund the demographics and the needs that you serve. Because when you start looking at the grant itself and its requirements and what it supports, you may find that it only supports male youth or children between a certain age, or women, or girls, or Jamaicans. Okay, so if I'm in Nigeria, I'm not going to apply for that grant because only Jamaicans can be beneficiaries of that grant. Okay, so when you're looking to find a donor, you need to know who the donor supports to begin with, what ideas they support, what issues they support, and the types of people and demographics they support. They may only support one country, or maybe a continent like Africa, or just sub-Saharan Africa, or just the Caribbean, or just certain countries within the Caribbean. And you have to know that, because you're wasting your time applying or even sending a concept note. All right. Any questions about that one?
So I have a question.
Sure.
Usually you can find this information on the company's or agency's website, right? Which demographic or market they work within.
Yes, absolutely. And before you go for any grant, you need to look at the donor's website, and you need to study their website. See what issues even though the grant may say one thing, you will find out what their priorities are by looking at their their website. You may also get a copy of their contract if awarded. That's very important because that way you can share that with your own decision makers so they can see if they can legally bind themselves to this organization. Okay? Does that answer the question? Okay. Is it better to have a partner organization when you apply for a grant? Do you need partners? True or false? I'd say 90% or better, you do. So I would say it's true. And the reason for that is twofold. We don't always have all the experience and capacity in order to implement a particular project in the way that the donor wants it implemented. Okay? We may not have the history of experience to show that we can handle a donor project of $20,000. Well, you say, well, we have a budget of over 50,000 that we do every year. But have you ever had a grant awarded project of $20,000? There's the difference, because they want to know that you have experience with donors and the rules and regulations that go with winning an award, winning a grant. Okay, so you sometimes pick partners who have that extra experience that you don't have. The other reason that you should have a partner organization is that we should be more community focused. We should be collaborations, working together. Who else in your community, in your region, does the kind of work that you do? They support what you do. They complement what you do. All right? Because what you want to be able to do is show that you have a wider range of ability to help people and provide services to them. So if you're only doing it in one ward or one region, and another partner has another area, that means that you can serve two areas and it's more bang for the buck, according to the donor. All right. Plus, they bring more experiences, different demographics. So, yes, it's very important. Any questions on that?
Who can be a partner?
Excuse me?
Who can be a partner?
They have to be like you. They have to be legally registered. They don't necessarily have to be a nonprofit. One of you is going to have to be the financial administrator. So it would have to be you in that case. If you don't have that capacity, then you need to have a partner who does have that capacity. Okay, and we'll get further into that later on.
All right.
But picking your partner is very important, or partners. I've done projects where I've had as many as almost 30 partners. And it was a global project for global health. And it was an award-winning project. And they were all small nonprofits scattered all over the world. And that's exactly what the donor wanted, not big organizations. So, and we were basically a small, medium consulting firm. So we were the administrative and structural capacity to be the umbrella for all of these organizations. So when you want to do something that is Jamaican wide, you need to be able to show you have reach all over Jamaica. Geographically, demographically, issue wide, depending on what it is you're going for. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Should a partner have the same experience as your organization or be about the same size? The answer is, it depends. Depends on what you need from that partner. Now, I've been involved in partnerships where everyone was kind of the same, about the same size, did the same things, and it ended up to be not a good relationship because you were too competitive with one another, and we ended up breaking up after that particular project, and people started competing against each other. So what you want is a group of partners where you set up a relationship that is going to be ongoing, so that when this project is over, you're looking for other projects to do together because you have a level of trust and understanding of one another, and you've developed your working relationship. Okay? Any questions on that? All right. How many partners should you have on a proposal? I would say only ones that add value because you like them. And so that they can get some of the money for your, that you're getting for your project. That's not the reason you would bring on a partner. You really want the partners each to have their own value and their own merit, because that's expanding what you're able to offer. Okay. Next question. How do we determine if a project is community-based? And in Calabar, in Lake State, in Nigeria, about 2 years ago now. And it was with the Department of Agriculture. And they wanted to know, how can you determine if a project is community-based? Now, they're looking for funding to do community-based projects, and they're going after community-based funding, but they didn't know how to go about putting together a community-based program. So I had to do a training with them. And it's very simple, but we don't always use those same skills when we think about doing it. You ask people. That's the answer. You ask the community, what do you want? What do you need? That's how it's community-based. You get their wants and needs, and you get their commitment and leadership to help you implement this project. You get that agreement with them. And that's part of your proposal when you write your grant, when you write the methodology, how you're going to go about implementing this project. You're going to talk about how I got the information, right? Now, a community needs assessment is a blanket term, and it's more than that. You really need to go to individuals. You need to have public hearings. You can't just go to the community leaders. They have their own agenda. You really need to do demographically located public meetings with a wide range of people in order to get what people truly want. Now, are you going to put everything like that into your grant? Of course not. You're going to prioritize those that make sense for what you're writing this grant for. But you can explain what the other issues are and how they impact what you're asking. All right. There's a real skill in terms of community assessment. Community mapping is a very important skill that people use in order to get that information. I don't know if you've ever used community mapping, but it's a very, very easy and effective tool, and we can talk about it later on. Okay.
There was just one question in the chat, and they were asking if you're a smaller organization or an individual, would it be better to partner with medium or large organization, since there could be competition with smaller sized organizations? So does it matter the size of the partner that you're having?
Yes, it does. Okay. First of all, if you're an individual, you're going for grants that have nothing to do with anyone else. You're going for things like fellowships and seed grants, unless you're talking about your nonprofit is only one person. Now, if your nonprofit has to be more than one person anyway, because you have to have a board of directors. Okay, so it is more than one person. Now, I have this problem, okay? A number of circumstances because of the political situation in the United States has been very fluctuating for the last 4 years. And as a result, small nonprofits like mine didn't have the opportunity to get funding from organizations. All right, so I ended up staying in the volunteer realm. But prior to that, I had lots of contacts in large nonprofits, large corporations, medium-sized nonprofits, and small nonprofits. Because I don't have the history of grants with my own organization, I have to select an organization who has that experience. Now, I've written them, I've implemented them, I've managed them, but my organization hasn't done that. Amaranth Village doesn't have the history. I do. So if Amaranth Village is going to go for a grant, I have to look for partners who have the experience that I don't have as an organization. Now, because I don't have the fiscal experience required by a donor, it would make no difference whether it was a small nonprofit, medium-sized, or large. Whatever my partner was, or it becomes, that partner is the one who's going to have to be the lead partner, because they're going to have the fiscal responsibility. I'm not able to do that. So our partnership agreement will have to state who the fiscal entity is, who the fiscal administration is. And in many cases, I wouldn't even be an equal partner. I'd have to be a sub-partner. Right? If you do equal partnership, you both have to have the same level of experience and capacity. And that's a very, I don't recommend going as as two legal partners equally, because there are complications. Because if anything goes wrong, it's very difficult in the middle of a stay. So I don't recommend that you look for equal partners, but you pick partners, you ask for partners who have what you don't have. So in many cases, you become the sub partner, you don't. Hopefully.
Yes, I think it was clear.
Okay. How do you know if you have a winning proposal? All right. A lot of people think that if you find a proposal that's already been awarded, oh, I'll just copy that one, or I'll make it just like that one. Well, no, that one's already been awarded. And the demographics are not going to be identical to you. So I don't recommend that. It has to be innovative. Yeah, it has to be innovative. Almost all funders now are looking for a certain level of don't want the so. That's what people wanted. Now they want innovation. Your proposal meets all the criteria of the proposal. Has to. Your proposal has a lot of criteria. You better be able to meet every single one of those criteria. If you can't, and you don't have a partner who can, you really are wasting your time writing that grant. Okay. You meet all the criteria. More specific information about what the donor prioritizes. And if you can't match what they prioritize, all right, you're wasting your time. See, small children might have been who they prioritized 2 years ago. Now they're prioritizing young women who are undereducated. Well, they're not looking for children programs, even though they support children programs. The year that you're writing that grant, their priority is education. Okay? They're looking for the most bang for the buck. And what does that mean? It means that normally grants have a certain number that you're going for. It's a $10,000 grant. Okay? If I write my grant for $9,500, do I have a better chance of getting that grant? What do people think? Do I have a better chance of getting the grant if I write it for $9,500 instead of $10,000? Yes or no? Good. You all know. No, it isn't. They're willing, they want to give out $10,000. That's what they want to award. So what you do is your grant as much that you can do for $10,000. All right. So one of the things that you can do is to supplement your grant proposal with in-kind and matching resources and partners and community support, because all these organizations who want to be part of your program have something to offer to the program. So when you add all that stuff up, and they're getting that for their $10,000. So that's what it means by more bang for the buck. Okay. Any questions on that? All right. A proposal includes, now there was a huge list of items. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm just going to read them through and I'm going to tell you. A proposal in a bunch of paragraphs writing about what you'd like to do. A proposal is going to have, your grant proposal is going to have a budget, a budget narrative. It's going to have credentials of your organization. You have to show that. You have to show financial statements, and usually audited financial statements. Certifications. A lot of donors want to know that you're not going to use the money to lobby political or for political issues. So that's one example. Two. It has a timeline. A history of your partner organization. Have some Christians working on this project. Questions about that?
Excuse me, in the absence of a strategic plan, could anything else use?
You can develop a preliminary strategic plan, noting that your organization is going to be doing it within the year. Now, the reason they want the strategic plan is they want to know that you're not chasing the money, that what you're going for and how you're going to use the money aligns with what you already want to do as an organization. That's part of your plan over the next year or two, is to do this kind of work. But how do you prove that? Well, your strategic plan will show that. Too many organizations will chase the money, and when you look at their strategic plan, it doesn't match what they're asking for or what they say they're going to do. All right? So a lot of donors are now requiring a strategic plan or a copy of one. Again, you can say we're in the process of doing that and outline what a possible strategic plan would be. Would that be enough? I'm not sure. It depends on the size of the grant. That answer your question?
Yes, that's good enough.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Just a minute. I see Miss Archer have her hand up for quite a while. I see she also posted a question. So if she could just, if it's different from what she posted in the message. She was asking if she could access this information outside the platform. Was that what you're asking, Ms. Archer?
Good morning. Thank you for acknowledging me. Yes, that's what I wanted to find out. If we side of this platform.
Materials, complete materials, not just what you see up on the PowerPoint, will be available to everyone at the end of the 5-session series. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Next question.
Yes, so I was wondering, right? if it is your first project as a non-profit organization or community-based organization, can you seek funding, or do you have to have like a track record? You have to build up a track record first of projects that you have already done.
All right. This is where, yeah, it's very tricky. If it's a small grant, if it's a grant like for $1,000 or $3,000, okay, for a seed project, many times the donor will be looking at startup nonprofits or nonprofits that don't, nonprofits that don't have experience. But once you start getting into real money, whether it's $10,000 or more, it's unlikely that they will look at you as an individual organization. What I suggest is for organizations like that to start doing fundraising and looking for individual donors who will give them a certain amount of money. And that gives them then a slush fund that they can use as a foundation for going for a grant. Now, if I'm a small startup and I've got $15,000 in the bank, even though I've never had a grant before, and I'm going for a $5,000 grant, I might have a good chance at it. Okay, but I'm also going to look to the donor to assist me, all right, because you can do this. People don't know this. You can tell the donor that because you don't have enough capacity on the financial end or on the historical end, would they give you mentoring if you were awarded the project? And many donors will do that. Not only that, they're supposed to do that. Many donors are meant to do it. Government organizations, development banks, they're all supposed to do that. They don't always do it though. But one of the things, when I wrote that St. Lucian grant, it was for only about $3,500 US. And it is to write a proposal. Now, one of the reasons they were giving us this grant is because the organization that I was writing it for doesn't have any experience. And it was clear from the concept note that they didn't know how to write a proposal. So part of them getting this 3-month grant was a professional grant writer write that proposal and then write the big one. So that's what I did. I wrote the proposal. We got awarded it. They know that I'm going to be involved in writing the big proposal. It's probably going to go for a couple of years, and it's going to be for a whole lot more UN money. All right. Now, in the application process, because it was a grant application with a lot of narrative in there that had to be answered. There was part of it that said, do you need help? Or I think it was, do you need help with financial and capacity and internal reporting? And I said, yes. And the board of directors was upset that I put yes. And they asked me, they said, well, we don't want to look stupid. I said, you're not looking stupid. You're looking smart, because this organization, GEF, already knows you don't have the skills and capacity. That's why they want you to have a real proposal writer to write the proposal. So admit it and say, yes, we need help. And what they did is they supported a consultant to be hired to do that in order to develop the large proposal. Okay? Does that help answer the question?
Yes. That was good.
Okay, all right. But I'd be glad to talk to you more about it, in the future. All right. Here is a very important question. And it begins you to understand why all of this stuff that we're talking about is so important. Okay? Especially the first two exercises we did together. All right? This question, most likely, who reviews and evaluates your proposal? You've gone to all this trouble. You've written a proposal. Okay? You've submitted it. You have all those things attached to it. All right? You send it to the donor. Who is reviewing and evaluating your proposal? Do you have any idea who is going to review and evaluate your proposal? Anyone have any ideas? Any answers?
Select committee.
What?
A select committee.
A committee. Okay, but the committee is made up of who? Are they seasoned professionals? Are they a committee of volunteers? Are they a group of sector professionals? You're all farmers. Is this going to be a committee of farmers or agricultural experts? Or will it be a staff person of the donor? It's actually a mix of all of these. And I have to tell you, the majority of the people on these committees are just volunteers. And many of them have no experience or knowledge about what you do or what you're writing about. You may have a committee of child advocate professionals reviewing agricultural proposals. That's scary, isn't it? Okay, that goes back to the original thing that we talked about. Precision of words.
Question though. So how would they, I don't think they are best fitted to assess the awarding of the grant then, those kind of persons, seeing that they don't have the experience.
You don't think it's fair,
No,
right?
I don't think so. And then a volunteer, what is his encouragement to even properly assess your application? Because I'm just a volunteer.
I know. And that is the problem we are up against, okay? Because you're thinking that you're writing to someone who understands what you're saying. And that isn't so. So when you use a lot of technical words, a lot of the people evaluating your proposal don't understand what you're saying. Or they have to read it 3 or 4 times. And they're not going to read it 3 or 4 times. They're given an evaluation sheet on how to evaluate each piece of the proposal. Okay. Are they going to evaluate it correctly? This is what you need to understand. They don't always evaluate it correctly. Now, we'll get further into this later on, but once grants are awarded, you have the right to know what your evaluation and assessment was. So you call the donor and you say, I would like to see how I evaluated and assessed. And most donors will give you that information. Now, it's very useful information because it helps you understand proposals and future. But I have had situations, and this was with a very, very large donor, international donor, who assessed us incorrectly. We caught it. And then we asked for a meeting with the people in charge of the grant process, the contract people. And they said that the evaluation was incorrect. Now, I've had it happen. Now, this doesn't happen often, but I've had it happen where they put you then into the pool of those that could be awarded. If there's more than one award, they'll put you in that pool and then they'll decide who the top ones are. But I've also been in a position where political problems.
I'm sorry, Leslie, I think you're muted. Can you unmute your mic, please?
Can people hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we can see and hear you now.
Yes, we hearing.
Okay. Apparently, the system decided to kick me out. Got tired of listening to me. That's why it's so important to understand the entire process of a grant so that you can have some control over what happens. You're in organizations where you're looking for grants, you're going to write grants, and then you want to know how to implement them. So you want the whole lifetime of it. You aren't all just grant writers that are just going in under contract, writing a grant, walking away. Okay. But even when I do that, because I understand grants, I will help my client understand what they need to do prior and what they need to do once it's been submitted. All right. That's why when you write the technical part of a grant, it's very, very important that you write it so that the average person can understand what you're saying. What I do is I will have somebody, a family member or a friend, read the proposal, the technical side, and tell me if they understand it. All right. Because if it is not understandable, I know that some of the members of the committee who are evaluating this won't understand it. Okay. Does that help answer the question? I'm not saying it's fair. That's just the way it is. Okay.
But question, how many of them, after rejecting your proposal, will be willing to share how they assess your application?
Oh, they're given assessment sheets, evaluation sheets to complete, every member of a committee. Okay.
So I'm saying, how many of these organizations will be willing to share with us the assessment as to why our application was rejected?
Most donors will share it because the name of the assessor isn't on the sheet. It's a combination assessment of all the committee members and how they rated you and in what area. And you should be able to get that from a donor. Now, you may not get it in writing, but you might get it verbally or in an email. All right. I think it's important information. I've used that information to help me determine whether I should work with certain partners again, whether I should ever write for that particular foundation or that donor again. Also, how to be better at what I'm doing. Okay. The other thing that you have to kind of understand is that all of you think you're going to be writing grants. You need to know that the majority of grant proposals, the majority, I'm not saying 90%. So you are up against a particular profession of people who know what they're doing. It doesn't mean that these people work for the organizations they're writing it for. Okay.
If your proposal did not meet the criteria of the donor, is there any way that you could make amends and resubmit?
No. No. Unless it's an ongoing. If this is an ongoing grant, you need to look then at the donor's requirements and see if you can resubmit. Some will not allow you to resubmit. Some will allow you to in the next round. Some would say that you have to wait a year or two. Again, you have to go into the donor's website and see what their criteria is.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. All righty. What I'm going to do now is ask for are there any more questions in the areas that we've talked about? Because now we're going to go on to the roadmap. Okay. Now, this is really just to lay it out to you so you can understand all the different pieces that go into developing a grant. Even if you don't write the grant yourself, and many of you are not going to do that. You're going to either hire someone or have a staff person do it. But because of your position, you need to understand what the process is, because you can't let someone say, oh, don't worry about this. I know what I'm doing. You have to know what's being done. You may not be the best grant writer, but you need to understand the process and where accountability is and all the pieces that have to go into this so that you can say, wait a minute, do I need a Gantt chart? Oh, okay. So the criteria says I don't need one. All right. You can't let the proposal writer tell you what's going on. You have to have an understanding of the whole process. So when you're going for a grant, you've decided that you're going to look at this grant as a potential. All right. So here's the first thing. You need to have the title of the grant. You need to have the number of that grant. Why is that important? Because anytime you communicate to the donor, you need to have those specific title and number exactly the way they have it in your subject line, in your email. If you don't, they don't have to respond to you. They're not going to second guess if this is the right grant that you're asking a question about. When a proposal is available, it's been published, you have a timeline to ask questions or queries. All right. You need to take that very seriously. That means you have to read that proposal, reread it, and reread it. And not just you, several people. Any questions that you have about any of the things that are involved in a proposal, whether it's the financial, the credentials, the history, all of that, if you have any questions, you have to get that question submitted by that particular date and to the person that they say it has to go to. And that information is in the proposal. How important is this? This is extremely important. I have seen it where the questions made the donor realize that the proposal itself wasn't written correctly, and they had to amend it. So they make a change to the proposal that then gets published. And if you're not aware that there's been a change, you're not going to see what you're supposed to be doing. The other thing that happens is if you ask a question, you will then get a copy of all the questions that everyone asks and the answers. That also gives you an idea of who some of your competition is, the level of the competition, and sometimes actually who the competition is. Okay. Delivery contact and address. If it's manual, you have to know where it's going. If it's online, you have to know exactly where it's going. All right. And if it's online, may I suggest you go in ahead of time and register ahead of time. You don't wait till the day it is due. You register ahead of time, you get all the information, you get the, you copy and paste the process that they have in there so that you can do it. You can put it in a Word document and do it without having to be open to their website all the time. And very important, even though it says this section can only have 500 words, when you copy and paste your stuff in, it may be a different font, and you need to check that all your words got in there. Because if, when they figure it out, when you put it into that piece, you're showing more characters than they're allowing because they calculate it differently. So you have to make sure that everything is in there, because otherwise it's going to cut off words or your last sentence. Okay. You need to determine who your partners are going to be, both internationally and locally, if you need them, if you want them. You do this as you're deciding whether you're going to go for this grant or not. When is the deadline for submission? You need to, that is the date that you use, and you start backtracking in order to put together your schedule. All right. Any questions so far?
All clear so far.
So far, okay? Okay. Go to the next page. Okay, good, good, good. This is the process of determining whether you're actually going to go for the proposal. You download it and you distribute it to the entire team and project team. Whether you've got partners or just internally, you get that information around. Everyone reads it. I tell people to use highlighters and highlight different components in different colors. So if I'm a budget person, I use their proposal to determine what I need to be doing on the budget side. If I'm the person putting together the proposal and doing the submission, I need to use a highlighter color that tells me every single thing that I need to do. Okay. The second thing is do a bid, no bid meeting. Within 3 days of you getting that proposal and highlighting everything, you need to determine internally within your own organization whether you think you have everything necessary to go for this. Okay? You may find that you can't, and so you stop it there. If you decide you can go further, you have your first partnership meeting and you meet with your partners within 5 days. You go through everything together. And as a group, you decide what tasks people will take on to write the proposal, how they will get their information together, who the point person will be. And at the second partnership meeting, you decide for sure whether you're going to go for this grant or not. Because you may say at this point, we're just not competitive enough. We just can't do it. Better to stop then than to try to write a proposal that you know is not going to win. I recommend that people think they have a 70% chance or better of being awarded a project before they do a proposal. All right, any questions about that? Okay.
What will determine you knowing that you have a 70% chance?
One, you meet all the criteria and you do it really well. Because normally the grant will tell you how they're going to evaluate your proposal and how many points or percentage will go for each category. You can look at your own stuff and say, out of 50%, I've got 45. I'm pretty sure I have about a 45% of that. On the budget side, you might know that you're weak on the budget side, that you can't give as much bang for the buck. And even though it's 30%, you can come up with 20%. Okay, so that's how you begin to assess internally. As you get more into this, you learn who your competitors are. And you know how successful they are or aren't, and where they're most successful. So if you're competing against them and you know that they're going to go for this, you have an idea of whether you can compete on enough of a scale that you can possibly win. But if you can't, and you know they're going to walk away with it, don't bother. First time grant writers will have many challenges initially, right? Oh, absolutely. You learn by doing it. okay? And you get better. If you pay attention to what you're doing, you get better each time. But yes, I had been writing grants for probably 15 years when I went to a grant writing firm who was the best in the United States for writing educational grants. And she looked at my work and she said, "You're not a grant writer. You're not a good proposal writer." I said, "Well, I've been doing it for 15 years. She says, "You're not any good at it." She said, "What I want you to do is reorganize my organization. I am the best in the country. I need my organization to be as good as me." And in organizing her organization, I ended up having to write grants with her, write proposals. And I learned so much from helping her and editing her stuff that I became a really, really good grant writer. But that took about 1.5 years of working with her to do that. And it wasn't just education, because she taught me how to meet every specific criteria within the grant, to read every single thing that they were asking for and respond to it. So it makes no difference whether it's agriculture or education or human trafficking. All right. There's a process, and I learned that. So yeah, it took time. Absolutely. Any more questions? Okay, let's go to the next section. Mr. Sims? Yes. Okay. Yeah, that one. There we go. All right. This is when you've decided you're going to go for this proposal. You're going to go and you're going to write a grant. So you get your team together, and if you've got partners, you got the partner members too are there. All right. You determine the packaging, delivery, submission. However that's going to happen, you need to know what the specifics are, when the dates are, who the person responsible is, and who does the final edit. Now, if you're submitting electronically, which a majority of grants are done now, if the due date is tomorrow, do I submit tomorrow? What do people think? Do I wait till tomorrow to submit?
You don't want to do it on the deadline.
No. The reason you don't want to do it for the deadline is that systems crash. And when you're doing your submission, you may be having problems with the information you're trying to put in there. So if it's electronic, you need to register as soon as you decide you're going to do this proposal. You go into the donor's website and you register, and you start your application process by putting in the information that you can put in. All right. If you're still doing manually, you need to work backwards. When does it have to be delivered? How long will it take you to get the manual submission together? Okay. How long will it take to have it actually hand delivered? All right. Maybe it's DHL that's delivering it. Maybe you're hand delivering it. Do you wait to the day that it's due? You shouldn't. I have an example in Senegal where we were working from Washington, D.C. to an organization in Senegal who was going to hand deliver it to the donor. the day it was due, the deadline, they were going to go first thing in the morning, which would have been like 5 hours worth of time because it was due by noontime. Well, let's say it was due on a Friday. On Thursday morning, there was an electrical outage in the entire city in Senegal. Nobody had the ability to run off their material. We had ours run off, no problem. All they had to do was go deliver it on Friday morning. Someone wanted an adjustment to the final project. That adjustment then required a couple pages to be redone. That's where the problem was, because now a couple pages had to be reprinted and put into the manual proposal. Fine, we get that done. We had outside sources, no problem. They went to deliver the package and they thought they knew the building, they knew the city, they knew the donor. They get to the building and the electrical outage is still going on. That means not working. So they had to walk up the stairs to the 14th floor. And when we got to the door was closing at noon. They managed to convince that person to keep the door open so that they could make their proposal delivery. That was agreed to. The problem was, now we would have been accepted. The problem was the very next day, another proposal was delivered to that donor with the excuse that the electric shortage did not allow them to get their stuff delivered. The electric outage, all right? With that, we were eliminated as well because they could not do a precedent. We had invested $100,000 in the development of 2 projects that were delivered that day. We were out $100,000. Should we have delivered it 2 or 3 days before? Absolutely. Now, almost all grant writers like myself and organizations who do lots of grants and proposals have horror stories like this. This isn't out of the blue. All of us have experienced it. Even with electronic submission, sometimes the system will crash, sometimes the internet is down. There's all kinds of things that can go wrong if you wait till the last minute. So not to wait till the last minute means you have to have the final proposal completely edited, signed off on by the person with authority ahead of time in order to submit in a way that guarantees you'll get it in on time. So that's what this is all about. Okay. Any questions about that?
But sometimes it's no fault of your own why it is late, or it's so near to the deadline. So should we then not submit?
I have had it so that it was impossible for us to get a grant submitted and delivered on time. And we chose at that point not to submit and not to continue. We stopped the grant, even though we could have won it. But the delivery was impossible for us to get on time. The deadline date and time is exact. No donor will accept anything past that deadline time and date. Okay? Those are very important. Even when you submit online, it has to be done by a certain time or it's rejected. It's not even read. It's not even looked at.
Okay.
Okay, next
Yep.
one.
I have another question.
All right, guys, excuse me. Yeah, I'm gonna have to depart now, but I find this very, very, very interesting. And I look forward to the next session. Thank you, Madam Presenter.
Well, I look forward to it. See you then.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. McFarlane, I have a next question.
Yes.
You said you lost over $100,000. Could you insure yourself against that loss? Is there insurance against that? You said no?
You're muted.
Okay, am I heard? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. There is no such thing as insurance for that. There isn't. So all the proposal writing and preparation for any grant is at the expense of the organization writing the grant. Okay, you can't even put in the grant the amount of money to pay for a grant writer. That's illegal. There's no allowance for that. You have to pay for that person up front. You have to pay for your staff people up front. That's all, those expenses are yours. That's why it's very important to decide which grants you go for. All right, how much effort you're going to put in, because you're eating that effort.
I just wanted to ask something. Do you also have to pay attention to the time for the country who is asking or who is putting out the call for proposal? So for example, I'm in Jamaica and it is another country that is, willing to work with Jamaica, and their time is 2 o'clock, but I am probably 5 hours behind them or something. So is that something that we also need to pay attention to see if the time that they're asking is for their country and not so much your country time?
Right. Whoever is being submitted is the country time you're working with. So even if it's electronically submitted, if it's a German foundation, it's going to be on German time. Unless they
that is
specify.
important to remember.
Huh?
I said that is important to remember, because
It's
sometimes
very
we get carried away thinking we're doing.
Yes, and that's why on that first section, when we talked about, when things are due, when submission dates are due and times are due, that's when you have to be clear about that. Okay, Mr. Sims wants to know that we're wrapping up soon. So why don't we take any more questions, and then we will start here on Wednesday. I mean, on Friday. On Fridays too. Sorry. Okay.
All right.
Any other questions?
All right. Let's say I have an example, by way of an example, a local example here in Jamaica. All right, so there was this proposal out from the Environmental Foundation of Jamaica, which is a non-governmental organization. So the grant was $20,000 US. We completed the application, everything was fine. We met the bar that Leslie refers to, a strong 70% chance. However, the grant was due on 4 p.m. on Friday of that week.
Yeah.
At about 3:59 or 3:58, thereabout, I promptly emailed the EFJ, sent the document went through, thought everything was okay. When I reached the email, is a non-governmental organization, so it should have gone to efj.org. When I advised them that, yes, I sent it to the wrong email and blah, 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 it was declined because they said 4 p.m. They did not get it, so it's not valid. I also want to make the point that on the donor side, they too have to maintain strict standards and procedures in the event that something happens. Say someone else had submitted a grant at 4:05 p.m. and they qualified for the grant. And someone says, I know that this grant went in at 4:05 p.m. How are they qualified? It would have been bad on the donor side. So for them, they have to protect their integrity as well. So that is why there has to be strict adherence to method of submission and times of submission. So Leslie has stressed the point, and we can't stress it, more. It's very important.
It's the other thing that's very important is that if you're emailing in your proposal, I always will send it, I'll CC a group of people so that everyone is getting it, not just the donor. So we have proof that it was sent in at a certain time. So if the donor says to us, oh, we didn't get it till 4:05, but we can show that 3 other people got theirs at 3:55, okay? We now have proof that it was sent out in a timely manner. All right. So the problem then was at the donor's server side, not the side, our side, and not the people who were in the loop to get copies of it. You also ask for confirmation. When you send something by email, you ask the donor to confirm that they received it. Okay? There are things that you can do to try to protect yourself from those kinds of situations. Does that help? Hello? Ah, good. All right. I think we're wrapping up right now. So I hope to see you on Friday, same time, same station.
Sorry, there's one question, but I don't know if it's something that you'll probably look at another time. There was somebody asking, could you tell us more about the skill of community mapping? So if it's something that you're going to cover further down, then maybe.
Yes, we'll cover that. We'll cover that. Yes.
Okay.
Good. Good.
Great.
So I think we're at the end. Mr. Sims, you're there.
Yes.
We're
Yes,
at 11:58. I think we have to call it a day.
Yes, we are precise with the time.
Definitely.
But I just want to thank everybody, from RADa perspective, just to thank everybody for logging on, and to please remember to log on Friday, because we want to make sure that you continue the learning process. And I think everybody would agree with me that it has been going well so far. It was at a good pace with good information, so we could all understand. So I'm going to hand over to my co-host, Mr. Sims, to kind of just wrap things up for today.
Okay, great. Thanks much, Ms. Brown. Thank you very much, Leslie. It was so informative, and you would have shared some of this knowledge in our planning, and yet still it's so fresh. I was just so amazed at how quickly the time ran. Now, participants, I know we realize that we maxed out at 100, but we'll be working on that behind the scenes, and we'll be hoping to. So this should not deter you from logging on. It should encourage you to log on earlier Friday, and also to anybody else who might have had a challenge to come on. Let them know that the capacity will be expanded, and we should be having more persons Friday.
Oh, all right.
So, yes. And the responses in the feedback and the link, they were very good. We have 80 persons who responded out of the 100, and that I think that is commendable. So great going, and great use of the chat as well.
And guys, we're practicing what we preach. Time is of the essence. Timely submission of grants, timely ending of sessions.
Exactly.
It's exactly 12 p.m. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you for staying. And we see you again on Friday.
At the same time.
At what time? 5 minutes to 10 or 10 o'clock?
5 minutes to 10.
Okay.
All right, yes.
The West tried to log on early.
We're practicing the grand phenomenon here.
That's right.
And
Have a
we
great rest of the day.
Thank you. Thank you,
We
everyone.
appreciate the positive feedback, so you can keep sending it and tell others about it to join on as well. And at some point in time, we're going to make sure that we get everybody's name and contact information, because for all persons who had been part of all the sessions, we want to give you a certificate.